Welcome to Money Adventures with TK, a podcast for the ordinary young African who is determined to get their personal finances right. Willing to have a better relationship with your money? Well, this podcast is for you.
Hello, fellow trailblazers. Welcome to Money Adventures with TK. On this platform, we bring you fresh content and stories that the ordinary young African can relate to. This is somebody who's looking to have a better relationship with their money in order to make sound financial decisions. So now September is regarded as the National Savings Month. Not Savings Month, National Wills Month. And one of the conversations that has really stood out for me is how do we get more people, particularly Basotho in this regard, to take care of their estate planning and also to draft valid wills. So in conversation this morning, I have a young lady who is very passionate about mental well-being, but more so is also a lawyer who is practicing. And I have in studio today, in my little home studio, the beautiful, smart, calm Rethabile. Hi, Rethabile. How are you?
Hi, TK. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you? And thank you so much for agreeing to be on my platform, And I think many a time when young people think about the finances is estate planning is one of those things that we leave till it's very, very late, So before we get into the conversation today, let's maybe start with introducing who you are and what you do for a living.
Okay, I am Advocate Rethabile Mathealira Molapo. I am a lawyer by profession. I'm also a mental health advocate. I am currently a gender-based violence researcher. And I'm also the lead for an organization called Teach for Lesotho. Mm-hmm. It's part of the global network called Teach for All. It's an organization that deals with bridging inequalities in education.
Mm-hmm. And from what you've just said now, what led you into that space? Mental health, gender-based violence, and the legal legal profession that you went into.
Well, it's very funny how I became a lawyer, because it was initially not my dream or aspiration to become a lawyer. I initially wanted to be a psychologist. So you can see where the dream of being a mental health advocate came from. Mm-hmm. But I had a mother who was, she was very passionate about legal rights. And then she'd always tell me, so you better go and do law. Also, it was also from a personal, there were personal reasons behind that, in that we were facing a lot of legal challenges, at home, and she thought, maybe this would be a better career for you. Mm-hmm. But going into mental health, it has always been my passion. Apart from the fact that, I struggled personally with my own mental health, but it has always been my passion. And going into, Teach for Lesotho, I have a passion for development and gender-based violence as well. These are all issues of development, as we know. The three issues that are development related, it's health, it's education, it's also, the economy and being economically in a fit position. So those passions all came together and somehow I managed to make them work.
Okay. So like I mentioned earlier on, September in the financial planning world, or financial planning industry, is considered National Savings. Why do I keep on saying savings? July is National Savings Month, yes. But National Wills Month, where we literally go out and we advocate for people to have valid wills, to take care of their estate planning. From the work that you do, how would you describe what a will is? What is a will for the layman listening to this podcast or watching this podcast?
Okay, so in short, a will is a written document that is done by somebody called a testator. It has to be made voluntarily and witnessed by two witnesses. So it basically sets out how you want your estate to devolve upon your death. In a will, you also appoint your executor, and you can appoint guardians for your children as well. Mm-hmm. So wills in Lesotho the Lesotho situation about wills is very unique in a sense that The requirements are that you have to have abandoned a customary way of living and have adopted what is the so-called European mode of living, meaning that if you are married, you also have to be married under civil law. But there are two types of wills that people can make. It can be a single will that is made by one person, or it can be a joint will that is made by two or more people benefiting each other. But frequently it's done by people who are married. So when you are married as spouses, we know that at the end of the marriage, the joint estate comes to an end. So to avoid that, you want to treat the joint estate to continue as a single unit, even after the death of one of the spouses. So you benefit each other, and the one who is left as the surviving spouse will continue with their estate until they've also passed on, and then the estate passes on to your dependents or whoever your beneficiaries are after the death of the last one.
And I think in what you said earlier on, you mentioned that minors also play a part. So how do wills protect, or what role do wills protect people, minors specifically, when the parents die? Because what I've seen is many a time the kids are left destitute upon the death of their parents, So what role do wills play in protecting the kids' interests in this regard?
Okay, now when we talk about children, we talk about people under the age of 18. So we have, before I talk about wills, I'll talk about how the Children's Protection and Welfare Act protects the rights of children. So this law, which was enacted in 2011, gives children the right to inherit their parents' property. So when a parent dies, the relative and employers and whoever is in charge of the parent's estate has to report the estate to the Office of the Master of the High Court, who will then administer the estate on behalf of the children. And the Office of the Master of the High Court also has the right to appoint guardians where parents have not appointed guardians to administer the children's property. And then whatever decisions are made on the property have to be done with the approval of the Master of the High Court. But that being said, it doesn't mean that you should just leave your children unprotected and not secure their rights in a will. It is also important to put those affairs, to put your affairs in order and to actually appoint your children in a will, to have a valid will executed on behalf of your children, so that we actually know that, the property has been left to them, especially because the law gives people the option that, freedom of testation allows you to give your property to whomever you want. So it could also happen that if you didn't nominate your children, then you would have nominated somebody else. So it's very important for people to actually put their children in their wills. And I would say this, especially now we have blended families now. We have, especially for men, it's true that the Children's Protection and Welfare Act protects children's rights where property is concerned, but children whose parents are not married can only inherit from their mothers. So fathers who are not married to the mother, their children cannot inherit from them, So it is very important for such men to actually execute valid wills in favor of their children, especially if they have children outside of marriage.
My goodness. So what happens in the event where I die without a valid will?
When you die without leaving a valid will, your estate will be taken over, will be administered in terms of the intestate succession law. So it's either that intestate succession law under the civil law or the Sesotho customary law. So under the intestate succession law is that it's the spouse. If you leave behind a spouse, they get to keep their half share. They don't inherit their half share because it was the joint estate. The person also had a half share. So they take their half share plus a child's share. And then the rest of the estate is divided equally among your children. But it doesn't matter if they are male or female, married or unmarried. The civil law doesn't look at that. So that is how your property will be divided among your descendants. And now under Sesotho law, there is coverage that is offered for widows that they get to keep their husband's estate. But the Sesotho law can be very tricky. If now you leave behind property, and it's up to the family now to appoint who succeeds to the property. And we all know how messed up our families can be. Sometimes, sometimes people can be petty and actually leave out the people who are supposed to be getting the property and so on and so forth. So it's very important to actually have a will, because otherwise then you're going to be leaving these decisions to families who might not actually have the best interests of your own children at heart. So normally you would have, where there's no widow, then it's the firstborn male who gets to inherit the property. And, properly speaking, the heir is supposed to be taking care of the deceased obligations, but we know that doesn't happen. They keep the property to themselves. And this can actually affect the interests of whoever the dependents were. Or sometimes you could actually find that the property is moved out of one family and it goes into another family of the uncle or somebody else who was not related to the family. And the dependents in this family are actually left destitute.
And I think in closing, so what do we, and I love that because where you mentioned having control of what will happen after you're gone. So what do we say to people who still are of the view that you don't need a valid will, or who are procrastinating about preparing or drafting a will and getting it registered? What do we say to them in closing? Words of encouragement, if you will.
I would say it's very important to have a will, especially the times in which we live in. We live in during the COVID pandemic. And, it's very unfortunate. So many people lost their lives, and at a time where they literally could not foresee that they would lose their lives. So it's very important to actually have your affairs in order. You don't want your dependents to be running helter-skelter, trying to find family members who may not even want to assist them, in terms of getting, trying to fight for the property. So a will just makes things clear. You just know that I will just go to the office of the Master of the High Court and, get the will read and, just basically just yes.
I get you. So thank you so much, Rethabile, for coming through and sharing, Advocate Rethabile, for sharing your insights and experience and knowledge with us. So the question I have for you, the viewers and listeners of Money Adventures with TK and Escapes with TK, is: do you have a valid will? Make sure that leave a comment below in the description. Leave a comment below and let us know, do you have a will? And if you don't have a will, maybe let us know why the reasons you don't have a will are. And of course, if you like this video and this podcast, share it with somebody who can benefit from it. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. And also remember to subscribe, because we're trying to grow the community of trailblazers, and hopefully you are making sound financial decisions that will help you empower and leave a legacy that you are in control of. So until the next episode, thank you so much for listening. Remember to subscribe, like, and comment, and have yourself a good afternoon. Thank you. Cheers.
You've been listening to Money Adventures with TK. We want to hear from you. Don't be shy to like, comment, and share. Money's an adventure. Let's enjoy the ride.